Part 29. My evil Imperial wife is too arrogant, trash against the world, BlackBelly evil wife is too arrogant. Author, Lan by Gezi. Chapter 281. Lum Wan guessed that this ghost should have been attached to the sword skill in the inheritance place, and she was more and more interested in the transaction. He said. The man's voice in the black mist was still hoarse and low. This is a great hall that can open the place of inheritance. There are not only the exercises, but also the magic tools and medicinal pills left by the man. You won't tell me that the owner of that hall is you, will you? Lum Wan looked at him with a half smile. Naturally not. When the body was destroyed and the soul was scattered and escaped, this stray soul was inexplicably involved in the space storm before it entered the place of inheritance. He felt that the woman across from him was young but very old-fashioned. It's easy to find out if you want to trick her. Since he wants to trade, as long as it doesn't involve his secrets, he has nothing to hide. Lum Wan nodded with deep eyes and asked, "Are all your 10 strands still alive?" The man was hidden in the black mist and could not see his face, but his stiff body still revealed his shock. "How do you know that there are 10 separate souls in this seat?" His voice was cold. "Naturally, you feel it from the weakness of your soul. This is my secret method." Lum Wan's meaning is very clear, and my secret method will not be told to you. She said about the man's soul split to make him fear her, and it would be more beneficial if the deal was negotiated. The man secretly breathed a sigh of relief. It was the first time he met this woman, and it was impossible for her to see through his identity, let alone within this small interface. This seat has been wandering in that palace for hundreds of years, and has been marked with a soul mark, and the place can be freely entered and exited. The man paused and said. "Then how can you be sure that I can enter the place of inheritance?" Lum Wan asked with a smile. "The purpose of your participation in the Tianling Continent tournament should be to join the 6 major sects," the man asked rhetorically. "Yes. The land of inheritance is about to open. As long as you enter the 6 major sects, you will have a chance to get a place in it. I believe it is not difficult according to your ability. This woman's cultivation base is not high, but she is shrewd to death." Lum Wan took out the spirit tea and slowly brewed it. After a while, a quiet tea fragrance wafted out, and the man's eyes darkened. "What do you want in exchange?" Lum Wan asked while holding the teacup. "Help this seed grow this ray of soul," the man responded. Lum Wan stared at the clear and fragrant tea soup in the cup. After a while, he said, "Okay, let's establish a partnership relationship first, and then we can discuss further transactions after we trust each other." The identity of this man during his lifetime was definitely not simple, it was quite mysterious, and it aroused her interest, so it was okay to play with him. "Okay," the man said without hesitation. "If this woman can be trusted, they can indeed cooperate on a lot of things." Lum Wan took out a 1,000-year-old ice box from the space ring, and after opening it, she could detect the man's scorching gaze. "You actually have such a divine artifact as the soul cultivation wood," the man couldn't help but exclaimed. Lum Wan ignored him, and with a gesture of his hand, he held a golden knife in his hand. She chopped off a section of the soul tree, and quickly carved it with a knife, and soon a string of wooden pendants took shape in her hands. She then took out a few spirit stones and arranged a spirit-raising array, sealed it in the pendant, and hung it around her neck with a red thread. "I originally wanted to get a bracelet to wear on my hand, but the blood-blooded bracelet took up its place, and I could only carve a pendant. You usually stay in this soul-cultivating wood pendant to recuperate. I have set up a soul-cultivating array, which can absorb the spiritual energy of heaven and earth and cooperate with the soul-cultivating wood to nourish your soul." Lum Wan raised her eyes and looked at the man. This piece of soul-cultivating wood, which had been dead, was brought back to life by the green mist's spiritual power in her body, and new buds grew. Therefore, the carved ornaments have the effect of normal soul-raising wood. "Okay, then you're welcome." The man turned into a wisp of black air and got into the pendant on Lum Wan's neck. With his methods and vision, it was natural to see that Lum Wen did not do anything in the formation and soul tree. Since we are partners, don't call yourself your seat in front of me in the future, Lum Wen said after cleaning up the sawdust on the ground. The man sighed, okay. Soul-raising wood is a god-level spiritual item. If I hang it around my neck, I'm afraid that some strong people will see through it. It should be no problem to use your ability as a blindfold, right? She who can enslave others will never be soft-hearted. Okay, after the man finished speaking, a trace of black air emerged from the pendant to wrap it. After a while, the color of the pendant became much lighter, and the breath of the soul-raising wood on it disappeared. Even Lum Wen couldn't find it. This also made her more sure of the man's extraordinary origin. Maybe it would be risky to take in this man who was physically damaged, but she liked challenges. After the two reached an agreement, the man began to practice while hiding the pendant. Early the next morning, a very pleasant bell rang throughout the central city. Lum Wen opened her eyes and a smile appeared on her lips. The rematch is over. She took out her identity jade card, and there was indeed a notice to gather in the central square. It was almost time. She went to the central square with Ye Qinghan and the others. The person who appeared in the sky this time was an old man with a thin face. As soon as he appeared, the surrounding air was turbulent. Even if he restrained the breath on his body, the coercion of the strong man was still revealed unconsciously. The originally noisy central square instantly quieted down, waiting for the sword sovereign above to speak. I announce that the semi-finals of the Tianling Continent Battle for Hegemony are officially over, and now we are entering the final finals. The old man's words were very concise. The top 500 ranked in the standings in this rematch will enter the finals. The finals will no longer adopt the points system. The specific rules will be sent to your new identity jade cards through the formation method. Now, take a look at the ranking on the identity jade card. 500 people stand on the left and wait to teleport out of the competition space. The 500 people who entered the finals stood on the right, waiting for a unified new identity jade card to be redistributed. Soon, the central square was divided into two groups of people. Not long after, several people in uniform clothes took back the jade plagues of Lum Wen and others, and distributed a new jade plaque uniformly. The jade plagues of the 500 people were all red in color. Your jade cards are now uniformly red regardless of the size of the country. If you want to be promoted to the top 100, the color of the jade cards in your hands must be at least cyan. If you want to be promoted to the top 10, your identity jade card it has to go up to purple. The old man swept a circle of 500 people who entered the finals. I won't say more about the specific rules. After you go back, open your identity jade cards to check in detail. Finally, I wish you all good results. After he finished speaking, he turned around and disappeared in mid-air, acting in a very capable manner. Lum Wen held the new identity jade card in his hand, with a look of anticipation in his eyes. My evil imperial wife is too arrogant, trash against the world, BlackBelly evil wife is too arrogant author, Lan by Gezi. Chapter 282. When the rules of the final came out, Lum Wen was sitting in Zizalo with Luo Li and others for dinner. Si Nan drank the spirit wine that 11 Zalo had just brewed, and said with admiration, Zizalo is famous for its spirit wine. This limited amount of spirit wine tastes really good. Just this spirit wine is good, Luo Li sneered in disapproval. Si Nan's mouth is very open, but this spirit wine is really good for him to drink. You dislike this spirit wine is not good to drink, so why don't you take a pot out of it? Lum Wen, get a pot of spirit wine to drink. Luo Li blinked his eyes and said with a smile. Both Si Nan and Helian Li turned to look at Lum Wen. Luo Li could say that, she must have a better spirit wine. Lum Wen gave Luo Li a funny look, if you want spirit wine, just say it. With a move, she took out 3 pots of blood sack wine from the space ring and put it on the table. Si Nan immediately took a new wine glass and poured a glass. The red wine exuded a mellow aroma, and he couldn't wait to take a sip. Good wine. He patted the table, looked at Lum Wen and said excitedly, "Little beauty, you actually have a blood bag of wine in your hand, and you didn't take it out sooner and let us share a thing or two." Lum Wen raised her eyebrows and stretched out her hand. "You want to share? Give me money." The corner of Sinan's mouth twitched. "You woman who gets into money's eyes. Lum Wen, where did you get this wine?" "It tastes the best spirit wine I've ever had." Helian Lai smacked his lips and asked in an unsatisfactory manner. "I made it," Lum Wen said with a smile. "These 3 pots are for you to drink. If you want to buy them directly in the future, 300 spiritual stones are a pot." "You steal people," Sinan rolled his eyes. 11 Zayalo's spiritual wine, which can also improve his cultivation, is only sold for a pot of 100 to 200 spiritual stones. This woman is the master who specializes in cheating. Helian Li said speechlessly, "Are you used to robbing people?" "Humph, if someone else would sell a pot of 500 spirit stones." Lum Wen glanced at the two of them lightly. "Zayalo's spirit wine can improve one's cultivation, but it's not as good as my blood sack wine. It's a long way off. You get what you pay for every penny, if you love it or not." Sinan and Helian Li drank another cup at the same time, and found that there was indeed a heat flow in their dantian. "Can your wine be pure and pure?" Helian Li couldn't help exclaiming after running the heat in his dantian for a week. Lum Wen glanced at him. "Bullshit, you guys are good at getting cheap. If I sell it, there will be no shortage of buyers for a pot of 500 spirit stones." Helian Li smiled bitterly and said, "Before we were clumsy." She was right. If this kind of spirit wine was taken out, let alone 500 spirit stones, even thousands of spirit stones would be afraid that someone would buy it. "Our focus seems to be wrong." Sinan's pretty face showed a bit of deepness. "Lum Wen, you who can brew this kind of spirit wine should be a senior winemaker, right?" 3 grades. Lum Wen thought about it and said a conservative number. "You're not human." Sinan took a breath. Her indistinguishable face had a sense of powerlessness. How could Lum Wen be able to change like this? What else can she not do? Lum Wen glared at him. "You are not human, can you speak?" "Cough, I mean you are not a normal person." Sinan coughed lightly to hide his embarrassment. He couldn't offend this vengeful little ancestor, otherwise she would be in trouble if she didn't go back with him to treat her mother and concubine. Lum Wen was too lazy to pay attention to him. Feeling the fluctuation of the identity jade card, she took it out to take a look. Helian Li and the others couldn't help but compare the difference between Lum Wen and Lum Wen in their hearts. "But I still can't help but want to get close to her. This is the so-called personality charm." The 3 pots of spirit wine looked a lot, but there were so many people present that 2 or 3 cups per person were gone. Luo Li glared at Sinan, who was about to pour the 4th cup. "I want to drink it myself and buy it with Lum Wen." Immediately, he picked up the last jug of wine and quickly filled the person who had only drank 2 glasses. Sinan's face darkened. Luo Li always liked to oppose him. "The rules for the finals are out." Lum Wen took her mind away from the jade batch. Others also took out their identity jade cards and scanned them. "The finals need to start from the central city and rush to Xuxian Mountain, which is thousands of miles away. Before entering the mountain, you will have a decisive battle with the monsters in the competition space. The swordsman who successfully passes through the encirclement of the monsters will determine the number of monsters killed." The rising color of the jade card. Luo Li frowned and said, "In the final battle with the monster clan, the death rate can be as high as 60% or more. Sword masters who are unwilling to take risks can apply for withdrawal. This is a joke with our lives. Otherwise, what do you think?" Sinan raised his eyebrows. "The top 100 in the finals are not so good. Sword masters who successfully pass the decisive battle need to rush to the top of the mountain quickly, and there will be countless obstacles in the middle. The first 100 to reach the top of the mountain will be the top 100 in this competition and are eligible to join the 6 major sections. there is a hall on the top of the mountain, there are 10 gates in total, and the 10 people who reach the top of the mountain first enter. They will meet randomly to clear the final battle, and the one who can pass the last gate will be the first place in this continental wind and cloud contest, and so on, and the second place will be placed. Daomon's second place. The rules of this competition are different from the previous competitions, Helianli said with a bad face. Luoye put away the jade card in his hand and said, every 100 years, the finals of the Continental Hegemony Tournament will change the rules, because there will only be a big battle between humans and monsters every 100 years, and ours happens to be 100 years. Why do you want to have a big battle with the demon clan? Helianli asked. It is said that the number of monsters in the competition space cannot exceed the number stipulated by the human powers. Otherwise, if there are too many high-level monsters, the space will be chaotic, and it will inevitably affect the future competition for continental hegemony. Luoye did not hide it. What you know is secretly spoken. I see, but after a big battle, the 500 people we have entered the finals will probably be cut in half. Sinan sneered. The motherboard side didn't take their lives seriously at all. Although they could understand the principle of natural selection and survival of the fittest, they were still a little uncomfortable. The organizer will assist, and the number of people should not be cut in half, but at least 100 people will inevitably die. Luoye's voice was a little cold. Lumwen pursed her lips and pondered. She suddenly thought of the Thunder Emperor she met in the Loxia Mountains. The demon cultivator and her agreed to meet in the Continental Hegemony Tournament. Could it be related to the final battle between humans and demon clan? She always felt that there were some secrets hidden in this space, maybe she could solve it when she met Lei Huang. At the same time, there was an independent hall in a place where there were thunderstorms and thunderclouds spread all over the sky. At the top of the main hall sat a stern-looking man in blue clothes wearing a crown. He shook his glass, looked up outside the main hall, and said to himself, "Is it finally coming?" You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. My evil imperial wife is too arrogant, trash against the world, BlackBelly evil wife is too arrogant. Author, Lan by Gezi. Chapter 283. Those present read the rules of the final, and although they knew that their lives might be in danger, no one gave up. Lumwen, let's continue the alliance, Luoli suggested with a smile. He, Sinan and Helianli had already negotiated to continue to form an alliance, and now he also hoped that Lumwen would participate. Lumwen did not answer immediately, but turned to look at Yekinghan and the others and asked, "What do you think?" Her actions made Luoli and Sinan's eyes darken. Lumwen was indeed different from the man named Yekinghan. Yekinghan's eyes showed tenderness. You decide. Luoli and Sinan glanced at each other, and both saw the fearful look in each other's eyes, a great rival in love. Lumubai and the others would not raise any objections. Yanur, make your decision. Let's make an alliance then, Lumwen said after thinking for a while. This time, what they will face in the early stage is to fight against monsters. Generally speaking, there is not much interest involved, and the advantages of the alliance are greater than the disadvantages. Then it's settled. Luoli smiled happily. Let's take a night's rest and leave tomorrow. Should we rush to the city where we will fight the monster beast now, or should we hide for a while to cultivate? Helianli asked. The time for the finals and the battle of the monsters was 3 months later, and the organizer still gave them time to improve their cultivation. Little beauty, what do you think? Sinan looked at Lumwen and asked with a smile. Lumwen pondered for a while and replied, let's go to a place near the decisive city to practice first, and then we can find out some information by the way. She always had an unspeakable feeling in her heart, as if something bad would happen to her. It is good. Early the next morning, the group gathered at the gate of the central city and met Jixian, Yanjun, and others. Are you allied? Yan Junjun asked with a wicked smile on his face as he walked to the group. So what? Didn't you also form an alliance with Mo Ling? Luo Li looked at Yan Jun defensively. Yan Jun's beautiful peach eyes blinked at Lum Weian. Miss Lu, don't you mind if we join your alliance too? Yan Jun, what's your purpose? Si Nan frowned and looked at him and asked. What does this dead monster want to do? He didn't believe that Yan Jun's purpose was simply to form an alliance, which was obviously aimed at Lum Weian. What purpose can I have? The big battle with monsters is naturally a lot of people and strength, and we can work together to minimize casualties. Yan Jun shrugged innocently. Many other elite teams have already formed alliances. Already? Okay, let's make an alliance, Shi Lum Weian said with a light smile. Yan Jun and Mo Ling may have some purpose, but it will not affect the alliance. She has no idea about the big battle in her heart, and the inexplicable heart palpitations come out again. Since it's all an alliance, why don't you add us as a group? Ji Xian came up from behind, with a gentle smile on his handsome face. Lum Weian glanced at him without hesitation. As you go. Miss Lu is a cheerful person. Ji Xian laughed out loud, and he could hear that he was very happy at this time. Luo Li and Si Nan were not in such a good mood, their faces sank, and there were two more rivals in love. While scolding others, the two obviously forgot, and they also took the initiative to get close to Lum Weian. Ye King Han sighed in his heart. His feelings for Lum Weian were already inextricable. Even if she and himself failed, no matter who she chose in the end, he would silently protect her. Of course, he will never give up what he should strive for. As long as there is a glimmer of hope, he will work hard. Chi Yuxuan no longer had any hope for himself. Lum Weian's world was getting farther and farther away from him. The group of people was still very large, and they arrived at the human refuge city in the decisive battle area 10 days later. On the way, they also met a lot of elite teams, no less than them, and there was no conflict between them. We will practice separately, and we will gather in the city during the battle with the monsters. Lum Weian's bad feeling became stronger and stronger. She didn't want to be with other people and was afraid of hurting them. Luo Li looked at her in surprise and asked, "Are you going out alone?" "Well, I'm going to find a spirit grass." Lum Weian kindly made an excuse. "Yan'er, why don't we go with you?" Lum Yubai asked worriedly. Lum Weian smiled slightly. "Brother, it's inconvenient for you to follow me, I'm riding the ice halberd quickly." "Okay, you have to pay attention to safety," Lum Yubai said with a sigh. "My sister has grown up, and she should be given freedom to fly with her ability." "Lum Weian, I heard that Prince Nangsun has gathered a group of people who want to snatch Sumi's boat against you. You have to be careful when you go out alone," Ji Xian reminded her before separating. Lum Weian nodded and smiled. "Thank you for reminding me, I will pay attention." Her heart palpitations became stronger and stronger, but she was certain that this dangerous feeling definitely did not come from Prince Nangsun. After leaving the city, Lum Weian flew towards a forest in the distance. After searching for a few days, she temporarily built a wooden house beside a deep mountain hot spring. "Master, I'm going out for a walk." Bingji's small eyes turned and rubbed against Lum Weian's shoulder. Lum Weian rolled his eyes at him. "I have a bad feeling recently, you should stay here." "Bad feeling? What's wrong?" Bingji was shocked. He rarely saw Lum Weian showing such a solemn tone. Lum Weian shook his head. "I don't know, the danger should be coming soon, so don't relax, be more vigilant recently." "Master, why don't you untie my seal?" Bingji thought for a while and said. He didn't want to unlock the seal because of his selfishness. If even Lum Weian was afraid of the danger, then he, who was now sealed with the demon power, couldn't help. Lum Weian paused and said, "Okay, let me unlock your seal first." Whether it's the sixth sense that senses the imminent danger, or the big battle with the monsters soon, the recovery of the ice halberd's strength also adds to their overall safety. Lum Weian recalled the method of unlocking the seal that Ming Xiu had told her in her heart, and her hands kept forming seals, one after another into the body of the ice halberd. Then she stretched out her hand to attach the crystal nucleus of the ice halberd, and probed into the spiritual power little by little, eroding the seal on the crystal nucleus of the ice halberd. The seal of Mingxiu is very profound. If he hadn't left Lum Wan with the method of decomposition, it would be impossible for Lum Wan to break the seal in a short time. Half an hour later, the seal in Bingji's body was undone. He raised his head and let out a long cry, then turned into a beam of rays of light and flew out. After the light dissipated, a handsome and elegant man walked out. Lum Wan twitched the corners of her mouth when she saw his elegant and gentle smile. The picture was so beautiful that she couldn't bear to look directly at it. My evil imperial wife is too arrogant, trash against the world, BlackBelly evil wife is too arrogant. Author, Lan by Gezi. Chapter 284. After the ice halberd took shape, it was too different from his temperament, and Lum Wan suddenly felt that it would be better for him to become a bird. Master, how do you think I am better than the handsome man in red? Bingji destroyed the elegance in an instant. Lum Wan rolled his eyes at him. Mingxiu is much more handsome than you. This is the truth. Mingxiu has a noble temperament, and occasionally has a kind of evil charm, but in fact, his temper is very cold, and the combination of very contradictory makes people think that this should be him. As for the appearance, not to mention, the deep features of Mingxiu are as deep as the carving of the heavenly axe, and the phoenix eyes are long and narrow, and they want to suck people in deeply. With her thin lips slightly pursed, it is like a peerless sword that is converging in its scabbard. She came to the competition space to meet a lot of handsome men, such as Luo Li sunny and handsome, Luo Yes noble and noble, Si Nan's indistinguishable male and female, Helian Li's romantic and suave, etc. Although each has its own merits, whether it is the overall temperament is still the appearance alone, but no one can beat the meditation. Master, you are a beholder in the eyes of a lover. Bingji rolled her eyes. Although Mingxiu is indeed outstanding in temperament and incomparable in appearance, he firmly refuses to admit that he is worse than him. Lum Wan glanced at Bingji. If you don't speak, no one will treat you as dumb. Bingji pursed his mouth and whispered, what's so good about that handsome man in red? Speaking of Mingxiu, Lum Wan's eyes showed a rare trace of warmth, and he didn't know how that fellow was now. Lum Wan was a little puzzled. If the person who saved her that day was Mingxiu, why would he not really show up in the competition space? Then she calmed down and took out the flying instrument that she photographed. This flying instrument gave her a more and more dangerous feeling, and that palpitation should come from here. If she threw the magic weapon to another place, she might be able to temporarily relieve the crisis, but she didn't want to sit still. If something bad happened, it would be a big hidden danger in the future if it was ignored now. She doesn't like to do half things, so if she can't escape, just wait. Master, you have been looking at this flying instrument a lot recently, is there any problem? Bingji came over and asked curiously. Well, there is a soul arresting formation on this flying instrument. If I hold back my blood, my soul may be forcibly detained by the other party's spell. Lum Wan did not hide that several spiritual pets had already made friends with her. Can be trusted. Hidden in the inconspicuous and intricate patterns on the Sumi's light boat is the restraining spirit formation, which she would not have discovered if it wasn't for her advanced research on formation methods. Bingji was startled. That artifact refiner is too vicious. Master, why didn't you throw this flying artifact away? Being able to manipulate the flying instruments and sculpt a complex and difficult magic circle such as the soul detention array, only that 5th grade item refiner could do it. What if I throw it away? I have a feeling that he is coming for me. Lum Wan's eyes were solemn, with a rare murderous intent. Instead of sitting in fear and waiting for death, it is better to lead him out of the hole and think about it. Ways to remove this big hidden danger. She didn't know if she had a grudge with that Master Wu, but if she dared to do anything to her, she would have to pay the price of her revenge. She wanted to see what he wanted to do. That's right, such a hidden danger cannot be eliminated without sleeping on the pillow. Bing Ji's eyes flashed coldness. He has never been a kind demon cultivator, but he usually covers up the murderous desire in his heart. If you want to beat his little master's idea, you have to ask him whether he agrees or not. At the same time, a bloodless and unusually pale middle-aged man rushed towards Lum Weian's location on a flying instrument similar to Sumi's light boat. That girl actually entered a first-class danger zone. That's fine. The reflection array monitor in the danger zone can't see it, and it's more convenient for him to act. Yes, the area where Lum Weian is located is exactly the periphery of a type of danger zone divided by the competition space. What Master Wu thinks is exactly what she thinks, and she doesn't want to be monitored by others with some tricks and cards. You can't get a tiger without entering the tiger's den. She has always had a kind of madness in her bones, and she likes to challenge difficult things. 2 days later, Lum Weian sat in the wooden hut and drank spiritual tea, holding the local level sword skill in his hand and quietly flipping through it. Suddenly, she looked up at the door, and her lips raised a cool arc. Since your excellency is here, why don't you come in and drink a cup of tea to quench your thirst? The ice halberd turned into a colorful parrot and stood on Lum Weian's shoulder. Hearing what she said, she couldn't help but look out the door vigilantly. The black mist in the pendant around Lum Weian's neck suddenly dissipated, revealing the figure of a man in black. He still couldn't see his face clearly. He opened his eyes and showed his soul power with great interest. Why not do it? He just wanted to use this incident to see whether this woman named Lum Weian was worthy of further cooperation and transactions with him. After she finished speaking, she saw a man with a pale face and red lips walked in. You knew I was coming. Master Wu stepped into the room lightly and sat down opposite Lum Weian. Lum Weian had a faint smile on her face, but there was not much warmth in her eyes. She reached out and poured a cup of tea for the person opposite. I've been waiting for you for a long time, and your speed is too slow. Master Wu's eyes narrowed, and after a while, he laughed. You girl is really extraordinary. It seems that you have already seen the problem on Sumi's light boat. I didn't expect Master Wu, who is well known in the heavenly spirit continent, to use such despicable means to engrave the soul restriction formation on the flying instruments that were auctioned. You don't feel ashamed, but I feel disgusted for you. Lum Yuyan smiled and sneered, his words slightly mean. What this Master Wu did was really disgusting, and she thought she couldn't scold enough. There was a little anger on Master Wu's face, and his expression changed, and then he returned to calm, took a sip of the spirit tea in front of him, and then slowly said, "Good tea, it's a pity that you can't drink it for long." He didn't expect Lum Weian's attainments in formations to be so high, and if only her soul could save his beloved wife, he wouldn't want to take action against such a genius. Since you're talking about this, why don't you talk about your purpose? Lum Weian also wondered why this Master Wu wanted her life. She had never seen him before, and he didn't have any hatred for her in his expression, and there seemed to be a hint of helplessness in the killing intent. Because only your divine soul can save my beloved wife. Master Wu reached out and refilled a cup of spiritual tea for himself. Lum Weian and his beloved wife have a blood connection, so it's okay to let her die and understand. Wife? Oh, why didn't I know that my soul still has such a role? Lum Weian sneered and lowered his eyes, his long eyelashes concealed the look in his eyes. My evil imperial wife is too arrogant, trash against the world. BlackBelly evil wife is too arrogant. Author, Lan by Gezi. Chapter 285. Master Wu didn't care about the coldness in Lum Weian's tone, but there was a hint of tolerance in his eyes. Lum Weian felt the urge to beat him up when he saw his accommodating but determined killing intent. Hey, it's useless to talk too much. Do you have any last words? Master Wu sighed and looked directly at her and said, I can bring you back to Lu's house. After a pause, he added, if your spirit rescues my beloved wife, I will protect the Lu family for 10 years in exchange for you. He looked at Lum Wan and Ling Qiu's somewhat similar faces, and he didn't want to use thunder to kill her. He only hoped that she would obediently sacrifice her soul. Lum Wan let out a low laugh, raised her eyes and continued sarcastically, I can protect the Lu family myself, I don't need to bother with your precious hands, Master Wu. As for who lives and who dies today, there is no decision yet, why should you be so anxious? Promise. It's a good thing for young people to be confident, but being too confident is arrogant. Master Wu shook his head, with a hint of pity in his tone. Lum Wan frowned, stood up and swept out of the wooden house with a sensation, and shouted to Master Wu who was sitting inside, if you have any means, just use it, I hate people who become a bitch and want to build an archway in my life, you are definitely one of them. This man wanted her soul to be so pretentious that she was extremely disgusted, and she knew that the difference between giving away her soul and forcibly plundering it was still relatively large. This person wanted her to voluntarily sacrifice her soul to make such a hypocritical gesture, but she looked down on her instead. When Master Wu, who had a look of regret, heard her say this, his morbid face instantly turned gloomy, with a hint of scarlet in his eyes, and snorted coldly, I don't know how to lift up. He didn't say any more, Sword Sovereign's strength radiated out in an instant, and he pressed down on Lum Wan in waves. The corners of Lum Wan's lips evoked a touch of coldness, her mind moved, and 10 golden flying swords fell in front of her to form a gossip. After she punched in a few seals, the golden flying sword emitted a dazzling light, blocking all the waves of coercion. The ice halberd also took the opportunity to turn into its body, with a bird's beak, and a series of ice cones erupted from his mouth and shot straight at Master Mist. There was a slight surprise in Master Wu's eyes, obviously he didn't expect Lum Wan to hide a spiritual pet with the same strength as him. He snorted coldly, and 2 figures that looked exactly like him emerged from his body, and even his breath seemed to carry the coercion of Sword Master. He moved his finger and patted the back of the 2 figures, and the 2 figures flashed out in an instant, surrounding the ice halberd to attack. Puppet technique. Lum Wan was a little surprised. This Master Wu was not only a 5th rank item refiner, but also did not expect to be able to use the puppet technique, which was somewhat beyond her expectations. You actually know the puppet technique. It's a pity to kill you. Master Wu shook his head gently and sighed from the bottom of his heart. Lum Wan actually knew about the extinct puppet technique in this continent. If it wasn't for her soul, he would have accepted her as a disciple. What a pity. Lum Wan glanced at him, and the seals on his hands kept forming, and then quickly retreated to the hot spring. Pucci. Suddenly, 4 walls of fire emerged from the ground and instantly surrounded Master Wu. I have long heard that the Dark Horse Lum Wan formation is very accomplished this time, and seeing it today is truly extraordinary. Master Wu casually swept her formation, if this fire formation is at a higher level, I would still there's really no way. He chuckled lightly, and a faint orange light suddenly emerged from his body, and the flames in the formation hurriedly retreated back as if seeing a nemesis. With a flick of his finger, a cluster of orange flames burst out, instantly engulfing all the surrounding walls of fire. The biggest chance you encountered in the competition space back then was the spirit fire, right? Lum Wan's expression changed, this Master Wu was a little tricky. No wonder the feeling of heart palpitations kept popping up in her heart. It seems that today is more fortunate and less fortunate, but even so, she did not show the slightest timidity. Master Wu raised his eyebrows, as expected of Ling Qiu's bloodline, he is unusually intelligent. Hearing the word Ling Qiu, Lum Wan raised her head and asked with a frown, are you going to give my soul to that person named Ling Qiu to devour and refine? That's right, if it weren't for you, I haven't found a suitable soul for 100 years, and I wouldn't want to shoot at you today. His tone was rather helpless. I wonder if Ling Qiu will blame him when he wakes up and realizes that what she devoured is someone who has a blood relationship with him. Immediately, a firm look appeared in his eyes again. Ling Qiu was his life, he couldn't live without her, and it didn't matter if he was to blame or slander him, as long as he could save her. Oh, I really didn't expect that the person who wanted to refine my soul was actually my grandfather's sister. Lu Muian's face was even more mocking. Don't make a fake gesture. Is it possible that do you regret a few words and I would like to thank you? It seems that this Master Wu is not staring at her now, and people who are similar to the blood and soul can indeed swallow and refine to achieve some effect. It's just that this technique has long been banned by the 6 major sects and several top forces in Tianling continent, and those who violate the order will be wanted and killed. Whatever you think, as long as I can save Ling Qiu, what does it matter if I bear the infamy of the entire continent, Master Wu said indifferently. Lu Muian raised her eyebrows. You really don't care about infamy, but you use the divine soul spell that is forbidden in mainland China without authorization. If the 6 major sects and the organizers know about this, I don't know if you still have life to continue with Ling Qiu. Stay together. So I'm also glad that you chose the place to wait for me in a dangerous area, which is a blind spot for their inspection. Master Wu's pale face rarely showed a hint of blush. Lu Muian was startled when he saw that his face became normal, and the hand hidden in his sleeve kept choking. Do you really think that there is an impermeable wall in this world? Lu Muian's hand was choking much faster. Master Wu's face gradually turned rosy, and the pressure on his body gradually deepened. Little girl, how long do you want to delay? Is it me to do it myself, or do you obediently go back with me and sacrifice your soul? I'm afraid your identity is not just as simple as a 5th-grade artifact refiner and an artifact refining pavilion elder. Lu Muian narrowed his eyes when he saw a faint blue smoke rising from the center of his eyebrows. If Master Wu looked at her meaningfully, he said with a sullen face, those who are too smart won't live long. Immediately, he stretched out his hand and grabbed Lu Muian in the air, and an invisible mighty force instantly enveloped her. The ice halberd shredded a black shadow and wanted to run towards her to save people. Who knew that Master Wu slammed it at will, and a wall of fire built with spiritual fire erupted to isolate him. The remaining figure puppet entangled in an instant. Then that power turned into a pair of invisible hands and tightly squeezed Lu Muian's neck, trying to suck her soul a little bit. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. My evil imperial wife is too arrogant, trash against the world, BlackBelly evil wife is too arrogant. Author, Lan by Gezi. Chapter 286. The feeling of being strangled by the neck was not pleasant, and then she felt a very light but very domineering force drilled in down her neck, heading towards the spirit guarded in her sea of consciousness. Her hands that were constantly choking stopped, her eyes closed gently, as if she was powerless to compromise. Master Wu naturally missed the fleeting sarcasm in her eyes. Mo Yan, let's get started. Lu Muian closed her eyes, and the seals of the previous tricks formed a vortex in her dungeon one after another. Mo Yan, who was sleeping in the spirit beast ring, opened his eyes instantly. His eyes were darker and brighter than before, and he was full of chills at this time. It is good. Lu Muian breathed a sigh of relief when she heard his answer. The reason why she dared to take the risk to wait for the arrival of the Sword Master, Master Wu, was because she felt that Mo Yan was about to wake up. She still attaches great importance to her little life, and will not be arrogant and stupid to challenge a swordsman who is 2 ranks higher than her and has trump cards. When her mind moved, a cluster of purple gold flames instantly followed her meridians and wrapped the gentle and domineering power, and it only burned to the ground in a moment. Master Wu, who was originally a light-hearted person, showed a bit of solemnity on his face, and let out a light sigh. There is actually a purple gold fire in your body, Master Wu exclaimed with wide eyes, and then his eyes were full of fiery greed. Then he laughed a few times. Ha, I didn't expect that. I've been searching for spirit fire for many years, and I came across it today under such circumstances. If I devour and refine the purple gold spirit fire in your body, I want to do more great things. Several layers of grasp. Lum Wan ignored him and concentrated on peeling off the seal of the Danshan. Master Wu waved his hand, and a dazzling orange light instantly enveloped Lum Wan, wanting to burn her whole body to death and devour the spirit fire inside. Lum Wan slowly opened his eyes, and the black pupils in his eyes were much deeper, as if the night would suck the stars in. A cluster of purple gold flames covered the whole body and stalemate with the orange flames. Seeing this, Master Wu sneered, and shot a line of Bailian with the pressure of a high-grade holy weapon from his sleeve and attacked Lum Wan. That Bailian condensed the primordial force of his full-strength strike, and the momentum was like a rainbow, coming from the sky. Lum Wan quickly blocked the gossip formed by the golden sword in front of him, but was still hit by Bailian and retreated dozens of meters. Immediately, her chest was sweet, and a mouthful of blood spurted out. She raised her head and looked at Master Wu gloomily. This man is really not a good thing, like a poisonous snake ready to bite her at any time. Master Wu's face gradually became ugly. He didn't expect to use so many methods to kill Lum Wan. He really looked down on her before. Looking at the sky, he couldn't delay any longer. Let's die. 3 green silver needles suddenly appeared in his hand, and as soon as they were released, the 3 silver needles flew towards Lum Wan. This is one of his trump cards, the Beluo poisonous needle. Not only is it made from deep-sea silver marrow, but the needle is also dyed with a kind of poison that can damage and eliminate Yuan Li. At the same time, it is also a classic work of his artifact refining, which has gone beyond the scope of holy artifact. Lum Wan felt a sense of crisis since the blue-colored silver needle flew, and she also recognized the refining material of the needle. However, there was no fear on her face. The blackness of her pupils gradually deepened, and even if she looked closely, there seemed to be clusters of black flames inside. Seeing that the green poisonous needle passed through Lum Wan's purple gold spirit fire and was about to penetrate her eyebrows, Master Wu's ruddy face turned pale again, and he still couldn't use too much real energy. Then the mutation suddenly occurred, and his originally smiling face froze instantly. Suddenly, clusters of azure flames with dim light emerged from Lum Wan's body, and the Zijin spiritual fire and his orange spiritual fire instantly dimmed a lot. A black paw print appeared out of thin air and grabbed the green poisonous needle. The original strong and powerful poisonous needle was blocked by the claw print and couldn't penetrate Lum Wan's eyebrows. Roar! Immediately, a beast roar with the coercion of the king sounded in the air. Master Wu's face was instantly pale. He opened his eyes wide and stretched out his hands and shouted with a slight trembling, "Netherworld fire, how is it possible?" While he was stunned, a white light burst out from Lum Wan's wrist and charged straight towards him. At this time, Lum Wan's stunning face showed a bit of a coquettish feeling, her lips curled up in an arc, she tapped her toes, and a golden dagger appeared in her hand. Master Wu woke up instantly, quickly threw out all the defensive magic weapons on his body, and turned around and flew away in the opposite direction. Lum Wan squinted his eyes, opened his mouth, and spewed out a cluster of cyan flames mixed with purple, which turned into a gorgeous lotus and quickly floated towards Master Wu. Master Wu was startled and accelerated his escape, but he was blocked by a white shadow. Taking a closer look, in front of him was a huge, snow-white monster. The cluster of bright red marks on his forehead that looked like flames were lifelike. Spirit-devouring beast, how is that possible? Master Wu was forced to stop, full of disbelief in his expression, and whispered, "Well, how can there be a spirit-devouring beast on this interface? Why are there spirit-devouring beasts on this interface? Go to hell and ask the king of hell." Lum Wan's cold voice sounded behind him. As soon as he turned his head, he saw the coquettish fire lotus that had restrained all the breath floating, and there was a hint of fear in his eyes, and he wanted to run away from the left side. Where to run? Bingji is not only an 8th order monster, but also a divine beast. He has already destroyed the puppet and blocked it in front of Master Wu. Seeing this, Master Wu showed a ruthless decision in his eyes, turned around and walked away in the only direction that was not surrounded. Who knew that the way was blocked by a huge golden monster plant that suddenly emerged from the ground? He could only stabilize his body and stand in the center. His eyes were full of shock. He had no idea that a junior at the Sword Sovereign level would have so many means. If it's just a spiritual pet, he's not afraid at all. He can kill Lum Wen even if he is injured with a little energy. But after all the calculations, she never thought that she would have a spirit-devouring beast, a royal spirit-devouring beast who has always lived in the fire of the netherworld. And there is one thing in this world that is his nemesis, or the nemesis of people like him, and that is nether fire. Run. Why didn't you run? Lum Wen raised her eyebrows and smiled with her arms wrapped around her. Master Wu knew that he had lost his greatest advantage today, and he smiled bitterly. He didn't expect to be caught in a urn by a junior after living for so long. How do you want? He asked with a cold face, his momentum unabated. I like group fights the most now, so of course we'll crush you together. Lum Wen's face was full of smiles, and his eyes showed a sharp and stern look. She just wanted to madly flatten this bitch, beat him before killing him, and put out the anger in her heart. My evil imperial wife is too arrogant, trash against the world, BlackBelly evil wife is too arrogant. Author, Lan by Gezi. Chapter 287. When Master Wu heard Lum Wen's words, he couldn't help showing a bit of sarcasm. You look too high on yourself. What qualifications does a sword master with a sword emperor cultivation base have to speak madly in front of him? Lum Wen hooked her lips and smiled, then let's wait and see. Immediately, her hands were covered with a faint purple gold color. This time, it was not just the power of fire energy, but the power of pure purple gold spiritual fire to bless her body. She gave Mo Yan a look, and she quickly moved in front of Master Wu with a sudden step, which was a punch. After all, Master Wu is a swordsman-level powerhouse who can easily dodge her attack, but he did not expect that the spirit-devouring beast behind him suddenly spewed a green flame, and he was instantly punched by Lum Wen. His pale and bloodless face immediately became red and swollen, and he was instantly furious. Just as he was about to fight back, the fire of the netherworld struck again from behind, and his expression changed and he could dodge. Then, a white snake jumped out of Lum Wen's wrist, opened its mouth and sprayed a mist towards the place where Master Wu was. The man-eating Bloodthorn Vine King swung up the main vine with a sharp sting and slapped the Fog Master continuously. Under the powerful attack of the ghost fire, he was accidentally scratched by the barb on the main vine. Then the big ice loon bird spread its wings and flew high above his head, constantly spitting out ice cones with great power and speed. Every time you hide from one side, you will always be forced to meet the other side by the fire of the netherworld. Lum Wen's fist covered with Zijin Linghuo is obviously not a vegetarian. Every time he bombards the weakest joint on Master Wu's body, he punches his face again, and a wisp of blood flows out from the corner of his lips. At this moment, the light-hearted Master Wu was extremely embarrassed, and his movements became slower and slower. He was startled, and he was invulnerable to all poisons, and he was actually hit by the superimposed poison of the poisonous mist of the white snake and the poison of the vines. His whole body gradually became stiff, and even if he used his energy, he could not break free from the shackles of that toxin. The slow movement and slow response also allowed Lum Wen and a few spirit pets to seize the opportunity and beat him wildly. If there are other people present now, their eyes will come out in shock. This is a one-sided beating and abuse, as much violence as it can be. When the toxin on Master Wu's body dissipated, he fell to the ground with his head in embarrassment, and his internal and external injuries were very serious. Lum Wen, don't forget that I'm your aunt's husband. How will you explain to the Ling family when you treat your elders like this? At this time, Master Wu was surrounded by a blue flame. He didn't dare to move too much, otherwise he would wait. It is the consequence of the annihilation of the gods. Humph, for an ant who wants to devour and refine my soul, it's fine if I don't kill her. Lum Wen snorted coldly, my aunt disappeared 200 years ago, and your so-called husband has never appeared in Ling's house, and you still want to go to relatives with Miss Ben, so that I won't kill you. After finishing speaking, she waved her fist and beat Master Wu again. Don't you want to know the whereabouts of your aunt? Master Wu wanted to fight back, but was restrained by the fire of the nether, and was extremely helpless. Why do I want to know her whereabouts? A woman who has become a double cultivator partner with a ghost cultivator, and who stole Ling's treasure and left the family is also worthy of my attention, Lum Wen mocked. She had never seen how the so-called aunt could have any deep feelings for her. The disappearance of her eldest uncle, Ling Fei Yang's father, seems to have something to do with the woman. In addition, she had heard from her mother that the treasure of the Ling family also disappeared after the aunt left the family, which directly led to the Ling family gradually declined. So Ling Qiu didn't give her a good impression. You know I'm a ghost repairer, Master Wu, who had lowered his head and didn't know what to think, suddenly raised his head and stared at Lum Wen. Lum Wen glanced at him, but the movements in his hands did not stop. Although the breath on your body is well hidden, the blue smoke that rose from your eyebrows when you used Yuan Li before revealed your identity. A ghost cultivator hid among the human sword masters and joined the item refining pavilion to become a famous 5th grade item refiner in the mainland. Your purpose should not be simple, right? Lum Wen snorted coldly. Ghost cultivators need to use countless fresh souls to sacrifice and practice the exercises, and their methods are mostly vicious and cruel. Because of his identity as an artifact refiner, Master Wu did not know what method he used to hide the identity of ghost cultivators. Joining the artifact refining pavilion definitely had an unspeakable secret. You are very careful at a young age. Master Wu's eyes were gloomy and cold, as if he had made up his mind. He suddenly reached out and tapped somewhere on his body, spurting a cloud of blood essence. A cloud of blood mist wrapped him, and an unpleasant smell of blood spread in an instant, and a red light suddenly emerged from the red mist and fled towards the distant horizon. Mo Yan's eyes were full of mockery, and when his mind moved, the cluster of flames on his forehead detached spontaneously, and he caught up with the red light and trapped it. Not long after, there were several screams in the sky, and the Master Wu was swallowed up by the fire of the nether before he could say more. Mo Yan, do you want to refine his soul? Lum Wen felt that the power of Master Wu's soul was getting weaker and weaker. Well, why do you want me to show mercy? Mo Yan raised his eyes and looked at her deeply. Shouldn't she be such a soft-hearted person? Lum Wen shook his head. Although you can refine it, can you get useful information from his soul? Okay, Mo Yan nodded. What the spirit-devouring beast is best at is to devour and refine the soul and deprive the other party of their memories. Then it's up to you. I want to know the purpose of his lurking in the refining pavilion and the whereabouts of that Ling Qiu. Lum Wen poked Mo Yan's body and said. Mo Yan quickly avoided her magic hand, his eyes slightly unnatural. Hey, Mo Yan, I just found out that you have advanced to the 7th rank. Lum Wen blinked her eyes and said. Mo Yan glanced at her, so what? He deliberately ignored the playfulness and curiosity in Lum Wen's eyes. He knew what she was thinking. Being promoted to the 7th order monster doesn't mean that you can change shape. Let's change it and see. She was curious about what it would be like to transform Mo Yan into a human. Mo Yan coughed lightly. We'll talk about it later. Mo Yan, you're shy. Lum Wen laughed a few times and laughed teasingly. Mo Yan rolled her eyes at her, and with a kick of his hind legs, he jumped into the air and opened his mouth to swallow the fire of the netherworld together with the spirit of Master Wu. I'm going to refine and deprive him of his memory. You can check if his space ring has anything good. Mo Yan waved his paw, and a dark space ring fell into Lum Wen's hand. Lum Wen took the ring, snorted lightly, and with great interest penetrated the spiritual power into the ring. My evil imperial wife is too arrogant, trash against the world. BlackBelly evil wife is too arrogant. Author, Lan by Gezi. Chapter 288. The imprint on the space ring has been erased by Mo Yan. Lum Wan probed her mental power into the space ring and found that the ring made by Master Wu was indeed extraordinary. Not only was the space more than 10 times larger than her current ring, but it was also divided into different areas. Among them, there is a space dedicated to placing the spirit grass, and the surrounding area is actually made of 10,000 years of ice, which can preserve the freshness of the spirit grass to the greatest extent. A separate large space was used for placing the refining materials, and there were countless precious refining materials, as well as many semi-finished products and finished products. Lum Wan swept the no less than 30 pieces of spiritual treasures and holy artifact inside, and the lips raised an arc after returning. He could improve the magical artifact equipment of the downstairs home. She roughly checked the contents of the ring, and found that Master Wu was too rich. There were millions of low-grade spirit stones and 20,000 middle-grade spirit stones. When she was about to exit the space, she suddenly found an inconspicuous dark red token mixed in a pile of various messy things. As soon as she moved, the red token fell into the palm of her hand. At this moment, Mo Yan devoured and refined the spirit of Master Wu and opened his eyes. When he saw the thing in Lum Wan's hand, his eyes darkened. This scarlet token is the same as the red gold token you got before. I also found out that Master Wu deliberately put it in a pile of debris and made a blind eye. I almost didn't recognize it. Lum Wan chuckled lightly, pinched a few tricks at random, and touched the dark and inconspicuous red token. A layer of things on the token shattered and disappeared. When the token was exposed again, the color was bright red, and a strong fire attribute element radiated out. It seems that there should be more than these two tokens, Lum Wan said while playing with the tokens. Mo Yan nodded. There is an aura that doesn't belong to this interface. It should be an indispensable and important thing to open a certain place. It seems that I guess there may be tokens such as 5 attributes. Didn't you find the information about the token in Master Wu's memory? Lum Wan raised her eyes and asked. There is a mysterious seal in his body that hides the very secret information. As long as his life is lost, the information will disappear, so there is no information about why he sneaked into the refining pavilion. Mo Yan faintly open your mouth. He shouldn't have sealed such a seal, right? Lum Wan asked with a frown. Mo Yan's dark eyes were slightly dark. That seal is surrounded by demonic energy. He may be a spy from other interfaces, and you will know a lot of things when your cultivation base reaches Sword Sovereign's strength. Lum Wan glanced at Mo Yan inexplicably. Do you think there are some things I shouldn't know? It's not good for you to know too much now. You should concentrate on your cultivation and wait until you reach the Sword Sovereign cultivation level. I will tell you some secret things in person. Mo Yan still didn't let go. Lum Wan pondered for a while and no longer bothered about this issue. She would naturally know when she should know. Do you know about Ling Qiu? Mo Yan nodded and explained what happened in Master Wu's memory. 200 years ago, he and Ling Qiu came to this competition space to participate in the Tianling Continent tournament. His purpose at that time was to find spiritual fire, and participating in the competition was secondary. After finding and subduing Ling Huo, his internal organs were also burned. When he was at his weakest and still not recovering, he encountered a swordsman from a superpower who was also looking for Ling Huo. He was almost killed, and was rescued by Ling Qiu when he was desperate. The two of them participated in the subsequent games together, and in the end they gradually developed feelings and fell in love with each other. After Ling Qiu found out about his ghost cultivator's identity, not only did he not leave him, but instead he stole the Ling family's treasure for him to cover up the aura in his body from being discovered by high-level powerhouses. Elder, Ling Qiu also left the Ling family because of this. 100 years ago, the two of them met a formidable enemy. Ling Qiu lost his soul because of his severe injury. He used a secret technique to find the lost original soul, but unfortunately he was too weak and needed to devour and refine a person who had a blood relationship with Ling Qiu. and only the spirits of sword masters with similar spirits can be awakened. He has been searching for 100 years, and this time he brought Ling Qiu to the competition space to find an opportunity, but who knew that he discovered your existence in the first city, and after watching the battle between you and the owner of the red gold token, he set his sights on you. He not only wants to take your divine soul, but also takes away the red gold token. It's a pity that people are not as good as heaven. He didn't expect that he would suffer because of it. But he was very fond of your aunt, and he was still thinking about it when he was dying. Lum Wan frowned tightly and pondered for a moment after listening to what Mo Yan said in one breath. Has Ling Qiu been involved in the matter of Master Wu's cultivation of ghosts and souls? Master Wu has been hiding the ghost repair's UN power. When he used the escape technique, she felt the strong bloody smell. There was also a lot of soul power mixed with it, which must have damaged the souls of many sword masters. Mo Yan glanced at her, then paused before saying, yes, and there are quite a few cultivators who died in Ling Qiu's hands, if not thousands, at least a few hundred. Lum Wan's face sank. By the way, did you find out about my uncle from his memory? Your uncle accidentally found out that he is a ghost cultivator. He originally planned to kill, but was stopped by Ling Qiu, who threw your uncle into the Black Mist Canyon, one of the 10 most dangerous places in the continent, to fend for himself. Lum Wan sneered, what's the difference between that and killing him? That woman is really not a good thing. Not only did she steal the family's treasure and betray the family, causing the Ling family to fall into ruin, but she also attacked the relatives. It's really hateful. Where is she? After a while, Lum Wan asked Mo Yan with a gloomy face. In a basement in the central city. Mo Yan rarely saw her so gloomy, and sighed, why be angry with such a person, you want to kill her completely. Uncle used to be very kind to me, I didn't expect him to be killed by that woman, can I not be angry? Lum Wan raised her eyebrows, it's boring to kill her, then hand her over to Ling Fei Yang to bring back. Let them handle the Ling family. Well, that's fine, but the treasure of the Ling family has been melted and refined by him, and now it's been turned to ashes by my ghost fire along with his body, Mo Yan said. Nether fire kills all evil spirits and ghosts. The ghost repairing evil art in Master Wu's body has already infected the treasure with devilish energy. Even if it is still intact, it cannot be used, so he burned it together. It doesn't matter if it's turned into ashes. Lum Wan didn't care about the so-called treasure. Well, something nice for you. After Mo Yan finished speaking, he spit out a cluster of orange flames from his mouth. After you refine the spirit fire, the purple gold spirit fire must be able to mutate and upgrade. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. My evil imperial wife is too arrogant, trash against the world, BlackBelly evil wife is too arrogant. Author, Lan by Gezi. Chapter 289. Lum Wan's eyes lit up. She had been thinking about this cluster of spirit fire before, but she didn't accept it immediately. Does your ghost fire need spirit fire evolution? If you need it, refine it first. Mo Yan's indifferent eyes were stained with a little smile. This spirit fire is not very useful to the fire of the nether, you can quickly refine it. Lum Wan was able to restrain the longing in his heart and give up the spiritual fire to Mo Yan, which also melted his heart that had been frozen for a while. I really don't need it. You didn't lie to me, did you? Lum Wan looked at Mo Yan seriously. If Mo Yan's nether fire needed it, she would never snatch it from him. Mo Yan smiled angrily and said, I really don't need it, this level of spiritual fire is useless to my life fire. Lum Wan rolled his eyes at him, feeling disgusted with Ling Huo's low level. Okay, you can't look down on me, but I'm greedy, so I'm welcome. This spirit fire does have the effect of mutating and upgrading her purple gold spirit fire. After she finished speaking, She put away the spirit fire with a wave of her sleeves and ran into the wooden house to start refining. Mo Yan watched her leave with a rare warmth in his eyes. 10 days later, a stream of heaven and earth aura continued to flow towards the wooden house. Although there was no spiritual cloud formed, the amount was quite considerable. Master, I don't know if I can successfully advance to the sword sect this time. Bingji turned into a human figure and touched his chin with a look of anticipation in his eyes. Mo Yan lazily lay on a piece of white animal skin to bask in the sun. No, upgrading too fast will cause the foundation to be unstable. She won't do such a thing. That's true, Meow Meow's upgrade is too fast. Will the foundation be unstable? Bingji asked a little worriedly. Mo Yan raised his eyes and glanced at him with a half-smile. No, monsters are different from humans, not to mention that Meow Meow has a golden dragon bloodline, so there is no unstable foundation under the 9th rank. This time, not only was Lum Wan practicing in seclusion, but Meow Meow and Shuexu felt that the bottleneck of promotion was broken at the same time, and the two monsters also found a place to advance. In the wooden house, Lum Wan refining the cluster of orange spirit fire is not as simple as imagined. Although the orange flame spirit fire is not as advanced as the purple gold spirit fire, it also knows the danger and will not be swallowed by the purple gold spirit fire willingly. While Lum Wan wanted to suppress Orange Yan's resistance and let the Zijin spiritual fire devour smoothly, she also had to endure the pain of the spiritual fire burning the meridians of the whole body. After another 10 days, she changed her sweaty clothes, and with a refreshing palm, a cluster of two-colored spiritual fire burst out. Immediately, she did not stop, but used the energy of refining spirit fire to shock her cultivation. The aura gathered around rushed up and all disappeared into the wooden house. Lum Wan transformed the aura into spiritual power, and used the green mist in the dungeon to purify it again and again. When the spiritual power was pure to the limit, she also successfully rushed from the middle-level Sword Emperor to the high-level Sword Emperor. This kind of speed is actually quite amazing, and if she wants to, as long as she gets a blessed spirit gathering array, she can directly hit the peak of the Sword Emperor, but she doesn't do that. What Mo Yan said is quite right. The cultivation base does not improve as fast as possible. She likes to lay a solid foundation. After the promotion was completed, she did not leave the wooden house, but took out the set of ground-level sword skills research, which benefited her a lot. Although she is an almighty from the spiritual world, she is not too ambitious. There are many things in this world that she should learn and accept with an open mind. A month later, Meow Meow was upgraded to the 7th order, and the blood also broke through to the middle stage of the 7th order. Meow Meow could transform into a human form, which made Shuexu jealous for a long time. Yaezai must reach the 8th rank to transform into a human form. Lum Wan's pets can transform into human form except for blood, but Mo Yan has never been transformed. Master, let's go into the mountains and play because Meow Meow upgraded too quickly. She now looks like a little girl of about 3 or 4 years old after her transformation. Lum Wan squeezed her fleshy pink face lightly and said with a smile, "This is a type of danger zone, even if the 8th order monsters enter, they may not survive. You better stop dreaming." Meow Meow and Bingji are a bit similar, they like to play and can't sit still. Hey, that's fine, Meow Meow sighed. We're going out in about a month. You and Shue hurry up and consolidate your cultivation. Lum Wan scratched her nose. All right. With 3 days left before the battle, Lum Wan walked out of the wooden house and flew out of the area. Because the monsters were also preparing for the battle, although they were in a dangerous zone before, they hadn't encountered any powerful monsters. When Lum Wan returned to the border town, Lum Yubai and others were a little anxious, and they were relieved to see her coming back safe and sound. After chatting with others, Lum Wan called Lum Yubai and Ling Fei Yang to the inn's room alone to talk. Yan'er, did something happen? Lum Yubai asked worriedly, seeing her solemn expression. Ling Fei Yang looked up at her intently. he always felt that what she was going to say today had something to do with him. Well, after I left alone before, I met the Master Wu who made the Sumi Qingzhou. It turned out that he was. Lum Wen briefly talked about the encounter with Master Wu and Ling Qiu, but he did not reveal what happened to Mo Yan, but told the news that he got from Master Wu. It's not that she can't trust Lu Mubai and Ling Fei Yang, but the more they know, the less safe they are. Bang, Ling Fei Yang's face was gloomy, and the teacup in his hand was crushed by him. Lu Muan sighed and comforted, "Cousin, maybe uncle didn't die in the Black Mist Canyon. After all, the soul cards left in the Ling family haven't all broken. The direct line and elite disciples of each family basically have a soul card representing life, and if the soul card is broken, it means that the person is dead. But my father's soul card is full of cracks. Even if he is not dead now, he will be more fortunate." Ling Fei Yang's face was a bit painful. "I didn't expect that the person who killed my father was his direct relative. And that woman is obsessed, she's so ungrateful for a man." Lu Muabai's face was also very ugly. Ling Qiu's talent was better than their grandfather's, so he was trained by the family, but he didn't expect to be fed into a white-eyed wolf in the end. "She's in this competition space." Ling Fei Yang restrained his emotions, but the coldness in his eyes did not dissipate. Lu Muan nodded, "Well, after the finals, I will take you to find her. If she can be saved without swallowing the refining spirit, I will try my best to wake her up." Speaking of refining the soul, Lu Muabai and Ling Fei Yang condensed a bit of murderous aura on their faces, and almost Lu Muan was also killed by that woman. What did Muan do to save her? Is she worthy? Ling Fei Yang frowned, a look of disgust in his eyes. Lu Muan curled her lips, squinted her eyes and said, "Don't you think it's too cheap to let her die like this? She might know some news about my uncle. As long as my uncle's soul card is not completely broken, there's still hope, isn't it? And that woman might also know some background information about Master Mist." Ling Fei Yang also had a glimmer of hope in his heart when he heard her say this. Yes, maybe she can know the news of her father. It's really too cheap for her to let her die like this. After a few discussions, they practiced in the city and waited for the big battle. Clang clang. 3 days later, a melodious bell rang. Lu Muan stood up and quickly swept in the direction of the city wall, and countless figures in the entire city also ran in that direction. The time has come for the final battle with the monsters. My evil imperial wife is too arrogant, trash against the world. BlackBelly evil wife is too arrogant. Author, Lan by Gezi. Chapter 290. When Lu Muan reached the city wall, everyone else had already arrived, and the wide city wall was filled with human swordsmen. Hoo hoo. Immediately, countless deafening beast roars continued to sound, and the black beast shadows on the opposite plane approached little by little. After a while, the bottom of the city was full of monsters of the 5th and 6th orders, and dozens of figures were fighting in the air, with extraordinary momentum. Lu Muan felt two gazes locked on her tightly, and when she looked up, she saw the man in white with blue lines on his face that he met in the mountain last time, and a thin man with strong killing intent. She saw that the skinny man's face was a little familiar, and after recalling it, she remembered Snake Princess. This demon cultivator wanted to have something to do with Snake Princess, and this time he also wanted to seek revenge on her. Her eyes turned cold, and she smiled provocatively at the two demon cultivators, making the two demons eager to rush over and tear her apart. Human swordsman, according to the century-old agreement, this is the time for our two clans to fight. According to the old rules, we will fight one-on-one first, and then we will fight in the end. A blue-bearded old man walked out of the demon cultivator, and the pressure on his body was restrained, but he could still be judged from the breath that he was the strongest existence among the demon cultivators here, an 8th order monster. The other party actually has a late-stage 8th order monster, and we are in trouble here. Sinan frowned. The strongest among them is only the high-level sword section. Although they have the ability to challenge beyond a level, there is still a big gap compared with the late-stage 8th order monsters that are equivalent to the strength of the sword master. Luoye was dressed in a noble suit, and his sturdy figure was wrapped in silver brocade clothes to make him look more elegant. We can only try it together. He can fight the monsters in the early stage of the 8th order, but if he fights against the late 8th order, he will undoubtedly lose. When Yan Jun saw Lum Weian's face not only without the slightest worry, but full of fighting spirit, he chuckled lightly. Miss Lu seems to be looking forward to this battle. Aren't you worried about the late 8th order demon cultivator? Lum Weian glanced at him and smiled. Isn't the sky falling down and you tall guys are still standing up? The monster leader of the other side's late 8th order monster naturally wants you elite swordsmen of superpowers to deal with it. A few people couldn't help but twitch their lips when they heard his words. She had never thought about how to deal with the late 8th order monster. Lum Weian's true thoughts naturally won't tell a few people. She still really wants to try the strength of the late 8th order monster. With the spiritual fire after the mutation upgrade, she has a little more confidence in herself. Okay, let's fight 10 demons with 10 people first, said a mature-looking man from the human swordsman. Who is he? Lum Weian had not noticed this man before. He is Xiao Jinyeo, the prince of Nanliang Kingdom, and the strongest person among our human swordsmen, Ji Xian said. Lum Weian turned his attention to Xiao Jinyeo, a high-level sword sex cultivation base, with a clear appearance, and a taste of elegance and gentleness in his demeanor. This man's savvy and elegant is the kind of charm that goes deep into his bones, which is definitely different from the elegance of Bingji. Immediately, the man jumped up to the top of the city wall, with a gentle smile on his face. Xiao Jinyeo, entrusted by the organizer to temporarily preside over the big battle between sword masters and monsters in this competition. Everyone knows that this time, the two sides have agreed on a 3-day battle with the monsters. After 3 days, the monsters must not stop us from forcibly breaking through this plain and rushing to the opposite mountain to compete for the final place. The old rule was to fight one-on-one first, and the duration of the melee was determined by the number of wins and losses. If we win a game, the time will be shortened by half an hour. If we win 10 games in a row, it can be shortened by 5 hours. There will be no less than 30 one-on-one battles in turns. I hope everyone will work together to overcome the difficulties. 10 people participated in the first battle, and the opponent's 10 demon cultivators had the right to choose first, that is, they could designate 10 human beings to challenge, and we couldn't interfere. Xiao Jinyeo's strength is naturally the last to appear, and he swept his eyes warmly at the people below. By the way, a reminder, one-on-one battles do not allow other people or demon cultivators to intervene. Life and death are up to one's life. Of course, if the opponent points to one of us, he can refuse if the gap between his cultivation and strength is too great, and he will reselect the person to fight. Xiao Jinyeo added another sentence. Isn't that fair? Why can they choose our people to fight first? One of the sword masters said, unconvinced. Xiao Jinyeo was not angry at his questioning, and explained with a smile, I'm about to explain this, because the treaty between the two parties has a 3-day time limit for monsters, so they have to choose human swordsmen to fight against. At the beginning of the second round, the results of the first round will determine which side will pick first. If we can win 6 games or the draw is greater than the other side, the next round will be chosen by 10 people from our human swordsmen. The opponent's fighter. So the first round of the competition is very important. I hope everyone will pay attention to it. No matter who is picked by the other party, we must fight with all our strength and not give our human monks a black eye. Xiao Jinyeo had a smile on his face, but his voice was a bit oppressive. Finally, I would like to add that the sword master who wins the game can increase the color of the jade card, so whether everyone can successfully rush into the top 100 is also a good opportunity to win. After his words fell, the swordsmen below immediately began to discuss. This is a good opportunity, but unfortunately I have to take my life, a swordsman who was not very confident in himself sighed. Yeah. The dozens of demon cultivators on the other side are all 7th order. The monsters are stronger than humans in terms of physical strength. It's hard to say whether they will win or lose. If you lose, you will lose your life, someone agrees. There are also sword masters who are confident in themselves and say, how can you raise other people's ambition to destroy your own prestige? What are the few uncivilized monsters afraid of? That is, whoever is selected for a while should not pretend to be a grandson. This is not only related to the results of the decisive battle, but also to the face of our human swordsman. Such voices filled the entire city wall one after another. Xiao Jinyeo smiled lightly. The time has come. Now our 10 demon cultivators are out to choose their opponents. You human swordsmen have no objection, right? The blue-bearded old man looked at the sky and looked at Xiao Jinyeo with vigor. Xiao Jinyeo smiled and nodded. Okay, let's start now. The blue-bearded old man glanced at random, and 10 demon cultivators flashed out. They had a goal in their hearts, and they designated the challenge object as soon as they appeared. I want to challenge her. As soon as one of the demon cultivators appeared, he pointed at Lum Wan in the crowd. Lum Wan looked at it lightly, and the demon was a skinny man who looked somewhat similar to Snake Princess.